Using add-ons sucks, but you have no choice. To prove it, I played for 3 weeks with no add-ons in keys over 20 and even Mythic Yggdrasil. It both sucked and I loved it at the same time, and realized the game UI can actually be fixed with fewer things than you might think. But since I'm not a game designer, I am most likely wrong. Or am I? We cannot live in a world without add-ons until two big things happen in WoW. First would be the encounter design and how complex it is set up to be. This means how difficult a raid boss is, how many things are happening at one time, or how many mechanics will a dungeon pack have. This is something more abstract to discuss and ultimately a product of the fact that people are already using add-ons to make the content easier. Because if we're going to be honest with ourselves, add-ons are either used to make content easier for you or to increase the quality of life. Content being hard is a hot topic because if you make it easier while still allowing add-ons, people will still use add-ons to clear it and it will become trivial and boring and people will stop playing it little by little. If you outlaw add-ons and then make content easier, a lot of people will just not be able to play during that time and at the same level and just give up on trying. So it sounds like a lose-lose situation, making the dev's job that much harder, something we need to appreciate going forward. But it's not impossible. The first steps towards this goal are already being made. First, we have private auras, which let's just call it an experiment, since its goal was to make it so weak auras or other add-ons couldn't read your own gameplay and broadcast it publicly to be used by said add-ons to create crutches for you to use. If I understood it correctly, let me know in the comments if I didn't. It backfired since people are now using more add-ons and those are even more complex to bypass the restrictions of private auras because despite the intention was good to limit the necessity of add-ons by making them less competent, the fights were hard enough where creating a more complex add-on or weak aura to figure it out was more efficient than actually learning to play the mechanic without an external crutch. But a successful attempt at moving to a no add-ons world was made with the ping system. This is a way of communicating between players that's fast and efficient, first of all. Second, it serves a function similar to weak auras where certain mechanics need people to split into groups, or soak certain things, or move to a certain predetermined place that now can just be done by coordinating through pings. It's still not 100% sufficient, but all things start with little steps. So at least we are on the path leading to dealing with mechanics as they are intended and not with third-party applications. However, a crucial part of this problem solving is still not properly implemented. Maybe it's on the horizon though, and I am talking about the user interface. The UI has already started its own journey towards the no add-ons destination with the edit mode introduced in Dragonflight. But the steps it took seem way smaller than what needs to happen because otherwise my kids will still be playing with add-ons at this rate and I am a virgin. So how do we fix the UI? Without add-ons, your eye has to check too many sections of the screen to keep up with what is happening, making it exhausting to play efficiently and pushing players to automate a large part of their skill expression because it's not engaging or interesting to scratch your left ear with your right arm. The first section to discuss and fix is the buff and debuff section. As with many other aspects of the UI, this is a product of core class and combat design, more so than pure UI faulty design. But it can be improved. First of all, the main issue is that if you want to find something, it's inefficient. It's inefficient because of the information bloat, first of all. Simply put, the volume of buffs and debuffs is so high that it feels pointless to try and track them, and if that's pointless, why do we still have them show on the screen when we are also supposed to find one or two specific ones to track? An example would be Hurricane for Arms Warrior. This is important to track with the double Blaze Storm build because you want to extend it just before it drops to have max uptime on it, like how BM Hunter extends Frenzy. But I cannot tell how long it has left until I find it in my buffs section, or use a weak aura. Similarly, the debuffs are in the same situation, to a lesser extent because there are just fewer. But, and this is true for healers, knowing how many and which debuffs exactly people have can influence your healing choices and reactions to be able to keep people up. One good thing the game has is a blue outline around the debuff on the party or raid frames that you can dispel. The issue is when there is more than one, on top of CC debuffs, having a different icon for every character that casts their respective crowd control ability. Stuns used to just share the one icon of a blue swirly, which is true for Demon Hunter meta landing effect, but not for Warrior, Stormbolts and Shockwaves. The game is big and old and has thousands of spells in its database, while the devs insist to update the icons every few years to new art. New art is nice, but for people who train their brains to pattern recognize certain things, it forces them to do it all over again, and a problem with new icon art is that it's too intricate. There's too much going on in an icon to be able to recognize it quickly, and a lot of icons look similar to a lot of other icons. Most Fire Mage spells, as an example, are a version of an orange circle. In the end, it's fine whatever design direction the team goes with, but it has to be the design direction so we can keep things consistent. A side note to something Asmongold mentioned once that is also a product of the situation and a similar issue is that there are too many sub-forms of CCs, like Horrify and Fear being different things, Polymorph and Hex being different. I understand complexity adds flavor, but we have to cut our losses from somewhere, and adding bloat does not help. All in all, it's too much. Too many buffs you can press, buffs you can proc from your passives, from your trinkets, from your enchants, from your runes, from your party members, from your tier set, coupled with consumables, zone buffs, rep buffs, and so on. Nameplates is next on the list and is closely tied to buffs and debuffs. It's difficult to track what you are interested in without hovering your mouse cursor, since icons are usually new each season, so your brain has to relearn this process constantly and for a lot of targets each time, if you don't use add-ons. The buffs and debuffs issues being addressed from what I mentioned earlier can fix these as well. Another fix that I discovered to nameplates in general was by using Plater, and making it better would give us our current nameplates with their cast bars including the name of the player, color-coded by their class that the spell is targeted on. This makes it instantly recognizable and feeds a lot of information to the player that would save up a lot of add-ons being used. Who is targeted? What spell will hit? Will the target need to pop a defensive, be healed, or interrupt the spell? All of these can be decisions one would make by simply seeing that cast bar. Big AoEs make tracking nameplates also difficult to the point where you want an add-on like Plater to color code mobs based on their mechanics. This is a ridiculous thing to have to do, but necessary when you have archer mobs that cannot be interrupted with one color, caster mobs that need to be kicked with another, gigachat caster mobs that have that one spell that can kill a person or the entire party that people have to save, interrupt or CC for, and regular mobs that don't do anything. And you have to have this so that you know which ones to look out for, because there's just so many of them. And if you think all of this is unnecessary, you either don't push content high enough in a game where pushing content is the focus of endgame, which is fine, do you, or you have died multiple times in a dungeon, didn't know why, or simply not had the interrupt ready because you used it on the wrong mob, and I played with you before, since our healer yelled, "Kicks?" ? Casts is one thing, but mechanics and threat is another, and the basic UI does not do enough to make it clear what is going on. And no, a very thin abstract yellow line around the nameplate to indicate loss of aggro does not help when there are 17 other things going on. And if you think the problem to this is too much AoE, then I present you with the population of players that enjoy going into a gazillion mobs and popping their fantasy nukes to obliterate everything. That's why they are paying their monthly subscription. The next offender on the list is the middle of the screen, with everything it stands for. The first thing is the boss, which comes with two issues: its model size and hitbox. It's nice to have big monsters to clobber and slay, that's part of the fantasy. But if we will have big monsters to kill, we cannot also have mechanics that happen on the other side of their model, a place we cannot see, and these mechanics will be something we will need to interact with. The best example of this is Smolderon with the tornado mechanic, or flame waves. The realistic way of fighting this encounter is to spread around the boss, and if you do that, tornadoes will fly towards you through the boss model. And guess what? You cannot see through opaque models. I don't know if this is more of an encounter issue or UI issue, but since we are discussing all the parts of your screen your eyes have to look at, this would be one of them. To be fair, in most cases, the devs do an awesome job at animating models to communicate what they are doing, so that's fine. A little bit harder to notice with big models that you see only 30% of. However, we go to the second issue, which is the hitbox. This is a mostly consistency thing, and I understand liberties have been taken to make an encounter easier or less annoying, but inconsistent hitbox are also annoying, and between the two, it would be the less intuitive annoyance to deal with. Two examples of this would be the second boss of Galakrond's Fall and the Battlefield of Eternity boss from Murozond's Rise. The Fall boss has a much larger hitbox than its model, and I imagine the reason for that was to make dodging the swirly orbs easier while also still being in range to hit the boss. Fair, but the hitbox is so large that as a warrior I'm not sure I can reliably charge it in combat if I have to move out or simply use charge as rage generation. While the Battlefield boss has a much tinier hitbox than its model, making melee players always awkward, thinking they are in range to hit it while nothing is happening. The second thing to address with the middle of the screen fixing is ground effects. This has been said so many times that I feel it's just beating a dead horse with a stick at this point. Let's stop having green circles on green ground or orange swirlies on orange ground. I'm talking once again Smolderon and Nimue as examples. On top of this, ground effects need to have a clear delineation on their area of effect. We know the swirlies or circles or puddles that are designed in a neat way to fade into the floor, making them more realistic, sure, but it also means that sometimes you are standing in the puddle even if your character looks like it's out of it. Whenever it's not clear that we are standing in the bad, we need add-ons like GTFO or DBM yelling in our ears to just move out. Nalrut and Farok are much better designed fights, seeing as the action happens on blue-green ground and the mechanics are all fiery. Let's just have all of them be like that, no? Ironically, most of these issues are already fixed by an already existing UI feature, but before I go into that, I need to finish up with the character panel. It somehow both lacks information and shows too much information at the same time. It currently shows useless stats like stamina and armor, and yes, they are useless in modern WoW since they scale proportionally with your eye level. There's never a situation where the armor or stamina value of an item will make an impact in your decision to equip it. To be fair, this is more of a problem of the stats being poorly designed. At the same time, there is a lot of information missing, like enchants, gems, and actual individual eye levels of the items in a world where I can still loot the same chest piece multiple times, have them all be epic with the same icon, but the eye level being the only difference. When you have add-ons like better character panel, having to hover your cursor on individual ones every time becomes annoying, since we are playing a game that overloads us with pointless information while omitting some of the most important ones that we want. The best add-on that I have found to solve this issue and improve it is Narcissus. I never looked at another character panel in an RPG and thought it looked better than this. This is pure genius. I can see all of the eye levels and enchants, but not the gems, and hey, this is where the base UI can come in and make some improvements. Also, I can one-click interact with each item to gem or enchant or swap it with another from my inventory. On top of it, to the right side, I have my stats, my eye level, my stat distribution, and even extra panels of info that can all be found in one place. And get this, because this is the kicker. This is a transmog add-on. Oh yeah. These are just minor features you get, since the real purpose of this is to make and share mogs, do poses and screenshots and much more. How is a transmog add-on having UI improvements over the main game by accident? I mentioned before that ironically a lot of these issues are kind of already fixed, and only kinda, because otherwise there wouldn't be a point to this video. And the feature that does it is the personal resource display. This neat feature will show your health and resource bars as well as buffs, procs and cooldowns. You can play Beast Mastery Hunter and have everything here to make sure you never drop Frenzy. You never will need a weak aura for it. Even tracks Beast Cleave, Bestial Wrath and so on. This does almost everything we want a weak aura to do, and because it doesn't do everything, we still need weak auras. For instance, on Outlaw, it freaking shows all of the goddamn rolled bones buffs, Blade Flurry, Slice and Dice, Shadow Dance, Subterfuge, Adrenaline Rush, and goddamn look at that fat sausage going off screen. Yet on Mage it barely shows Combust. On Arms it doesn't show Hurricane or Merciless Bone Grinder. Once again, inconsistencies. The point of this video isn't to criticize the devs, but to point out that we already have the tools to solve the problem. We just need the backbone to take the steps of banning add-ons and putting in all the quality of life they bring into the UI. In the end though, I still don't know what to do with the DPS meter. So I kept it on while I was playing with every other add-on disabled. No, really, we already made a video about what it means to play with no add-ons and what the conclusions to that experiment are. Check it here.